Have you explored some stuff with whether meat is negatively impacting our environment? Is that something that you've looked into much at all, or what are your thoughts on that?
So I obviously, understand that that's a part of doing what I do, being carnivorous. It's not something that I can speak to with a level of assurity as some, other people. I know that it's a lot maligned. I know that regenerative farming and sustainable grazing are great options. I know that 60% of the land that's currently used for agriculture could not be used for crops. So you're taking, because it's, too rocky or unsustainable. So you're taking an area that couldn't be used for that and turning it into food for humans. You can take spent brewer's grains, which are inedible for humans, and put them into an animal and turn that in. That's upcycling, and more than anything, I think the thing is, especially when it comes to cattle, 3% of greenhouse gas emissions are because of cattle. The more likely you'll hear the number about 20%. That's globally, so 3% in the US. So you doing meat, anyone else doing Meatless Monday, you're gonna you will save more carbon emissions taking one less international flight a year than being vegetarian for a year. Wow. Just for context.
Or planning your trips to the grocery store more efficiently.
Correct.
Something like that.
So I think that sustainability and particularly animal welfare is something that the industry is taking very seriously, and they should, and it's a conversation that we need to have for ourselves and the next generation. But I do think that there's like a completely reasonable middle ground that we can move forward, and it's not impossible meat.
Yeah, it's not the Impossible Burger, right?
No.
Have you tried it?
I have. So what should scare the shit out of you about the Impossible Burger is all of the regulations that surround meat. None of them surround that. So they can make any claim they want, and there's no laws that exist that stop them from doing that because it's uncharted territory.
So what, let me ask you this. Are they making any claims that you've seen that you're like,
oh, yeah.
Like what? Like what?
Mainly about the sustainability aspect of it. The model, first of all, no one has scaled it to the point where it could actually replace meat. Yeah. The amount of fields that they would need to grow the soy proteins that they use to emulate the myoglobin change it would surpass what is needed for livestock. Like, it's not scalable.
Wow.
So there's a lot of conversations that need to happen. Everything right now is hypotheses with no proof.
But it tastes just like beef.
Except shitter. It doesn't taste like beef.
Yes.
To me, it doesn't taste like beef. It's a facsimile. It's like carob. Did you ever get that when you were a kid? Someone tried to give you carob instead of chocolate, and you're like,
huh?
Sick.
You're like, nope.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Immediately no.
Yeah, a friend of mine, because he was trying to stop eating as much meat, and he had the Impossible Burger. He's like, Nsima, it tastes just like steak. And I had one. I'm like, dog, this is shit.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Power Project family, how's it going? Now, we've partnered with an amazing brand, Bubs Naturals. We actually have some of the products on the table. Their MCT oil powder, their collagen protein, and this their apple cider vinegar gummies, okay? One thing I want to let you guys know real quick is that the Bubs products, number one, they mix super well. So I've had different MCT oils, and I've talked to people who've used MCT oil and mentioned to the copy, and it doesn't mix well. Well, their MCT oil is amazing on coffee in the morning just on its own, but their collagen protein, and collagen is great for joint health, hair, skin, nails, all that stuff, that also mixes just so well into coffee and everything. That's one of the crazy things. But secondly, these freaking apple cider vinegar gummies, I don't ever supplement apple cider vinegar, but they put them in gummies, which is great. 2 per serving. We have literally eaten one of these full things. Andrew and I have split this. And Mark has to be so careful. Like, we give him 2 and we take it away because it tastes so good, but it's actually really good for you. So Andrew, tell them how to get it.
Yes, guys, seriously, have just the recommended dosage. Just have 2 of those gummies. Don't have 2 full bottles the way we do. Head over to bubsnaturals.com and at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 20% off your entire order. And what's really cool about Bubs Naturals is they actually donate 10% of all their profits to various charities, starting with the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. Again, bubsnaturals.com, promo code PowerProject to save 20% off. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
What's the deal with factory farming? We hear a lot about that. Do you know much about that? Like, I don't
know heaps about it. What do you want to know?
Well, I just don't know much about it. Like, because there seems to be a lot of regulations, especially here in the United States. Are there practices that are still, just foul and just way outside of what their regulations should be, I guess?
So everything usually works within the regulations. It's mainly more that there's a distaste for people about what just happens when you produce anything on a scale like that. The other concern for some people is that there's 4 main companies that control the industry, and I'm not going to try and pretend that there's not some issues with pricing and that they've had to watch them controlling supply and demand and things like that. But I think where people really get stuck is the idea that there's these factories, like, Simpsons did a great, great version of it, where the animals go in and get treated just like, a commodity and shipped out. So first of all, every cow or steer in America is born on a ranch and is born onto grass. If it's a beef cow, it'll spend some time with its mama and then go to grass and then go to a feedlot. So nothing is born on concrete and done that way. The other thing is, and I didn't know this because, I grew up in Melbourne, 5 million people, urban as fuck, did not have any agriculture classes. So there's a thing going on in California at the moment called Prop 12, where they're trying to ban the import of any pork from other states that use what we call sow stalls, right? And it's one of those things that's just not that simple. If you are a farmer or you've ever raised pigs, you'll know the very first thing that a mother pig will do if you leave it alone with his babies is sit on them and potentially kill them. They have really weird maternal instincts. So they keep them in these sow stalls, in these confined areas for the safety of the mothers and the babies. And there's some stuff that they have to do to animals that is just because it is on that scale, which is probably a little less palatable. But there's other stuff like that gets completely lost in translation in terms of what's actually going to be better. There's been a lot of work done into animal welfare to try and increase. Anthony Bourdain said it once in one of his books that there's a direct correlation between animal welfare and good quality meat. And so if you want good quality meat, you effectively have to look after the animal. And so they really work in tandem. And the industry has been trying to do a lot for that. I've been in processing plants. I've been on slaughter floors. I've seen dodgy as shit in small areas. I support the entire industry as a whole. I hate the narrative that knowing where your meat comes from makes a difference. I think it's a scare tactic for people, honestly. Meaning if you buy from the guy locally at the farmer's market, well, I've seen...
know your local farmer. I always think that's bullshit too.
Why doesn't a farmer in Vermont earn your dollars as much as a farmer in California? They both came from farmers originally, and someone is working hard to make those dollars in America either way. So.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why I brought it up. I mean, again, I'm sure there's plenty of practices that are outside the lines, but there are a lot of regulations, and it really wouldn't suit you well to mistreat the animals because it wouldn't be good quality meat, and eventually I'm sure your farm would probably get shut down if that was the case. And I haven't personally visited a slaughterhouse. I haven't personally been behind the scenes, but just in driving by and seeing cows and just observing them for long periods of time, they're herd animals, they hang out on top of each other
100%.
And people are I don't like that they're so close to each other. You'll go and look at a field, the field will be gigantic and all the cows are literally on top of each other. They're choosing that. They're not in a cage,
Yeah. They're all huddled in the one area. That's what's natural to them. And that's why it's actually more humane to keep them all together at the slaughterhouse, right before they go up into the ramp. They've learned with pigs that they've designed the chutes to be curved, and they'll paint the sides of them red because it calms the pig in the peripheral vision. If they can't see where they're going, the animal's much calmer. So they've changed a lot of those practices to keep the animal as calm as possible right up until slaughter. And the slaughter process itself, I'm a hunter. I'm a rifle hunter. My number one aim is to drop that animal as quickly as possible. I personally, this is just my opinion, think that I've seen more inhumane bow hunting from people who are I want to get back to what it was like back in the day. It's but the animal's running. I promise you that pig, that sheep, that steer is not running in a slaughterhouse. It is over like that,
Right.
So we've got to consider that as well.
How does it get killed?
So they have so for beef, they have what they call a captive bolt.
It just goes right into the brain or something, right?
Yeah, so it renders them. It's a big bolt that shoots out. I love
Yeah,
this.
I'll show you exactly how it's done. Mark.
The funny thing is that some of this is true, like the sluicing, the collecting of the blood in a giant sluice. That's true.
Oh my god.
So the bolt goes, it cracks their skull and goes into their brain, and it renders them unconscious. And then they are shackled by their hind leg, lifted up, and they're bled out. And it's actually the exsanguination that kills them, but they're non-responsive at this point. But that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like, you know, if you don't understand what brain dead is, but the body's still alive, then you're not going to really understand why that's a completely humane practice.
Right.
With pigs, they usually gas them. They used to use electrodes on their heads. They now just lower them into gas, and it's much more humane too.
Yeah, none of it's ever going to sound good, but it's like, how do we get our food?
Yeah. Do you know
Our
how
food
many
supply.
animals die from crop machines? That's why no food is vegan. Because you couldn't actually, like the amount of field mice and things like
squirrels and
that.
shit like that, yeah.
And most of the time, the best arguments the vegan can make is that is the sentience of those animals different to a larger animal, and it's ridiculous.
Why don't they gas cows? Might sound dumb, but I'm like, they gas pigs, but why don't they gas cows?
They're too big,
Too big,
and they don't
okay.
need to.
Okay.
The pigs are much more aware. They are and much more squirrely. Cows will just move in front of the next one in front of them. So they're safer to do with captive bolt.
Okay.